Picture the moment someone lands on your landing page. They came from somewhere. Maybe that's a click on an ad, a search on Google, or even a referral from a colleague. They have a problem, and they probably already tried something that didn't work. Now you have about 5 seconds before they decide to keep reading or close the tab. In those 5 seconds, most landing pages do the same thing. They explain the product and then they explain it again. But that's the wrong move. They're not arriving here thinking, what is this? They're arriving thinking, how is this different from the last tool I tried? That single shift, from explaining what your product is to answering the question that your visitor is actually asking, that's the difference between a page that converts and one that doesn't. I've spent the last 3 years specifically auditing SaaS landing pages, finding that gap between what the page says and what the visitor actually needs to hear. And this mismatch is what I find more than anything else. Not bad design or bad traffic, the right information, but just in the wrong order. This video is about fixing that. I'm going to walk you through a landing page structure that maps directly to how a real buyer thinks, from the moment they land to the moment they convert. So your page doesn't just explain what you do, but it makes saying yes feel obvious. Before we get to that, let's actually talk about the buyer's mental state when they reach your landing page. This is not something that's really talked about, but it's absolutely crucial to the success of your landing page. Where are your visitors mentally when they arrive at your page? Most visitors arriving on your page have either clicked on an ad, searched for something, or got a referral from somewhere. That means they already understand what the product is, they have some background information, and they're thinking, how is this different from what I've already tried? Let's take Granola as an example. Granola is an AI note-taker app. Their hero section opens with the AI notepad for people in back-to-back meetings. Granola takes your raw meeting notes and makes them awesome. On the surface, nothing particularly wrong with that as hero copy. It's pretty vague, but it's kind of a standard that we're used to with a lot of SaaS products. But think about who Granola's audience actually is. They've most likely tried an AI note taker before. So their question isn't, what is an AI note taker? The question is, how is this different, or how is this better from the last tool that I abandoned? So let's actually design this hero section to speak to that user. Leave every meeting with notes you'll actually use. No awkward meeting bots, just your notes made useful. Now we're speaking directly to their pain, and we're making it clear why Granola is better than what they've already tried. Same product, but a completely different angle. Your hero section really only has one job: convince people they're in the right place and to continue scrolling. Don't waste your first 5 seconds explaining what the product is. So let's start off with navigation. The main thing here is just keep it clean. Every extra link is a potential exit. Next is the hero section, and this is really the most important part of your landing page. And there's 6 elements that we really want to include here. First of all, we want a headline that speaks to the pain they arrived with, not the category. What I mean by that is we're not explaining what the product is. We're going to name the pain that they arrived with, reflect that back to them, and if we get that right, they're much more likely to stay engaged. So the headline names the pain, and the subheadline names how you solved that pain. So in the subheading, we're clearly explain how we deliver the value or how we solve that pain, but we want to go one step further for people that are arriving here having already tried something else. And that is, what makes you different from what they've already tried? So very important to name that differentiator in the subheading. The next element we want to include is some sort of visuals. So we want to show the product in action, allow the customer to visualize what it looks like, whether through an image or a video. But this really allows them to experience the product, and it can communicate a lot of value that we can't get across or we can't pack into the hero. Next is your CTA, so making it very clear what the next step is, what you want them to do next. Your CTA shouldn't name an action. Book a demo is an action. It's all about what they're doing for you. Your CTA should be about outcomes. So what's in it for them? Get a 20-minute walkthrough is an outcome. So switching that frame from action-orientated CTAs to outcome-orientated is much more effective. And with every CTA, we always want to back it up with one line of microcopy, whether that's underneath the button or just next to the button, naming their main hesitation to moving forward. So that could be no credit card required. Whatever that hesitation is, we want to address it directly in the microcopy, and that will make sure that more people are progressing to that next step. The last element we want to include in a high converting hero section is trust. So we've made a claim, we're explaining how we deliver value, and now we need to make it believable. So make sure to include some sort of trust building element in the hero section. And if you can make it a real stat or a real result, that'll be so much more powerful than just a testimonial or a logo. So your hero section really just needs to convince users that they're in the right place, that you understand their pain, and this is the right place for them to be. You have to remember that around 40 to 55% of visitors will only see your hero section. So it's worth spending 80, 90% of your time getting this section right. This next section is so underused and so underrated, but it can transform the conversion rate of your landing page, and it's really simple. Most landing pages jump straight into talking about the different features and the different benefits, but this is so much more effective. Show them where they are now, and then show them where they'd like to get to. That could be a very simple 2-column side by side like I have done here, or even just text written out. But the core idea is just show them that you understand their pain, and the more specific you can get here, the better. So list out exactly where they are now, what are the pains that they're dealing with, and then show them where they'd like to be. What's the dream outcome? By showing visitors that you understand their problem, they're so much more likely to trust you and to continue scrolling. Most landing pages skip this step. But just like a sales conversation, if you dive straight into explaining how great you are and what the product does, you've already lost the sale. Moving on to the middle of the landing page. At this stage, the 2 questions that we want to address are, will this work for me, and do I believe this? They're interested, but they're skeptical. So in this section, in the middle of the page, we're going to reinforce the value, we're going to explain how it works, but we're also going to back it up at each stage. So the third section we get to on the page is benefits. And this is really all about what changes for the visitor, not about your product. So we're not speaking about features. We want to avoid language like seamless integration, AI-powered, all-in-one platform. We just want to tell them, this is what your day will look like once you buy the product. Don't speak about what the product is, but what does the product change for them? That's the key. Next section we're going to get to is how it works. So the main thing here is just keep it simple. People are skimming, and every extra piece of information or every extra step that we add is just a reason to hesitate. If there's a lot of things happening in the background, or there is a lot of steps to your product, try to reduce it down, try to keep it simple. The customer doesn't really need to know all of that immediately. And then beside every element, particularly before we get to elements like pricing or the NCTA, we want to reinforce trust. So we're going to place a trust building element right next to every section that needs it. So right next to pricing, we're going to make it about ROI. But think about what actually builds trust. A lot of landing pages will just grab a bunch of testimonials from customers with vague quotes and use that as proof. But it's really not about the volume. It's about addressing specific hesitations. Let's say I'm a HR manager and I'm looking for a new tool, and my biggest concern is this going to slow me down for the first week of the month? Are we going to have a huge onboarding process that just delays all the work that we're working on? If I read a quote from a person in the exact same position as me saying, the onboarding was seamless, the customer service was excellent, and the team had us up and running in a couple of hours, that addresses my hesitation and it removes that doubt, so I'm so much more likely to continue. So relevancy of proof is much more important than volume of proof. So the next section we get to is pricing, and this is a crucial point in the page. This is where a lot of effort and confusion can start to creep in. The most common problems that I see with pricing sections is they're either buried away or hidden on a different page, or they're just packed with too much information. Right next to price, founders want to list every feature to make the value seem really good, but what it does is overwhelms the user, gives them so many options to weigh up. So restraint is key throughout your whole landing page, but particularly when it comes to pricing. So a couple of rules that are important to keep in mind here. Limit your pricing to 2 or 3 packages. Hicks' law tells us that more choice leads to slower decisions. So we want to avoid the number of choices that they have to make and just simplify that decision-making process. We're also going to highlight the most popular tier so it's easy for them to select, tell them exactly who each package is best for, and we're going to limit the number of features to only the ones that matter. We're not going to list every feature in every pricing package, just the most important benefits that they need to know. If you want a really simple formula for your landing page success rate, It's desire minus effort and confusion. So getting that balance between desire and effort and thinking is key. Most pages that I see are really good at building desire. They're really good at explaining the value and backing it up, but they're terrible at reducing the effort and thinking that goes into making the decision. So we're moving into the last section of the page towards the end, and the question that we're addressing here is, what if it doesn't work, and do I feel confident moving forward? At this point in the page, they want to say yes, but some hesitation still exists. So we don't need to sell harder, we need to reduce risk, we need to set expectations, and we need to make the next step feel safe. So 3 sections that we're going to put towards the end of our landing page. The first is a comparison table. So the main question that buyers have at this point is, okay, I'm interested, but what about the different options out there? What about the different packages? Maybe there's a better solution or a better offer. And what we want to do here is make it simple for them to compare. We want to help our visitors compare you versus the competitors. If we can do that on the page, we're much more likely to keep them engaged and not to lose them to Reddit or a different website. So very simply, just lay out you versus your top 3 competitors. List the features that are really important, explain how you provide value in different areas, and even show where maybe you're weak. By helping them compare on the landing page, we're just so much more likely to keep them engaged. The next section we're going to get to is FAQs. And FAQs are such an underrated conversion tool. Most landing pages or most founders treat them kind of like an afterthought. The main problem is, as founders or growth teams, you are the worst person to decide what should go in your FAQs. You understand the value, the pains or the hidden hesitations, the concerns, they're all invisible to you. So it's worth spending some time really researching, what are the blockers that are stopping my customers from moving forward? What are they searching for on Google? What are they asking in different Reddit threads? Spend some time understanding what those hesitations are and then list them here. Every question that you answer here is one less reason for someone to leave the page. The next section we get to here is going to be some sort of trust building element. So whether that's a testimonial from a customer or a specific stat that we can pull out. Before we get to the end CTA, we want to make sure we're reinforcing the value and building trust. And finally, the final CTA before we get to the end of the page. So the button copy again should name the outcome. The micro copy should diffuse the risk, and some sort of proof element should be close or in and around to make the next step feel safe. So those 10 elements really are all you need to create a high converting landing page. Obviously you can redesign these however you want, you can restructure them, make them look a little bit different, make them look more visually appealing, but having those 10 elements on the page ensure that you're taking your customer from I'm interested to this feels safe and this solves my pain to I'm ready to make a decision. Most SaaS landing pages make visitors work too hard. You don't need to explain every feature that you've built. You just need to help visitors quickly see I'm in the right place. This solves the pain that I have and people like me have got results. A high converting landing page makes the problem obvious, the outcome desirable, the proof specific, and the next step easy. This structure ensures that you're ticking all of those boxes in the order that they're needed. Every section exists to answer one question at the specific moment that question appears. Get that order right, and your landing page stops feeling like a brochure and starts feeling like a conversation. But here's the problem I find almost every time I audit a landing page. The founder understands conversion principles, they've read the blogs, they know the basics, they can tell you what a high converting landing page should do, but their page still has leaks. And that's because founders and teams are the worst people to judge their own landing page. They've spent so much time on the product that they don't see the gaps. The value feels obvious to them and the hesitations are almost invisible. The hardest part isn't knowing what a good page should look like. It's seeing the gaps in your own page. That's the gap that my audit closes. If you want me to go through your landing page and your funnel, identify exactly where you're losing people, where you're missing trust signals, where there's friction, there's going to be a link below to book an audit. I'll see you in the next one.